Hello and welcome back, everybody. We're getting ready for our second series of the day between TSM and FlyQuest Academy here. Already one in the books, now another best of two ahead of us with an interesting matchup between two teams that unfortunately find themselves at the bottom of the standings. But we did actually have some new word come up from the TSM corner here as of today that we'll, of course, be talking about. But first, let's intro in TSM Academy. Magical, I'm going to give this one to you as the team that is currently sitting in 10th place in Academy. What's going on with TSM?
Well, it just feels like they haven't been able to find the right strides in some of their games where been very close in many of them. You look back to the series against C9, where both games they could have realistically won. It was a
Hmm.
2-0 for Cloud9, but it wasn't like it was a hard-fought battle. You can see the growth that TSM have had over the split, even with Shen Yu stepping in. We even have an update where Gerson is going to be playing again here in Academy. And
Hmm.
so having him back, that was something where I actually think he did really well on the LCS. I think he had a good performance, but he also felt like he kind of was struggling a bit in the early stages of the season.
Sure. Of course, TSM Academy, big story is that they've been swapping things around. But now, quick thoughts on their opposition, FlyQuest. Cubby, I'm going to give this one to you before we get into our key player highlight.
Yeah, so FlyQuest, they are 9-17 as an org, which isn't
Hmm.
the best sounding record. However, the majority of their wins have come in the last couple of weeks. And I know that in the second round robin, they are 3-5. And I think that a lot of the better looks from FlyQuest have come from their rookies starting to understand how to play competitive games more. Yuji is fresh out of solo queue. He had to learn quite a bit as a jungler. And I think him being put on some more comfort picks, but also him syncing up with Diamond a lot better with that team has
Hmm.
really helped FlyQuest look significantly better in the last couple weeks.
I really want to touch really quick on that. Diamond has a lot of praise for Yuji. In the interview that he had a couple weeks back, he's saying the praises of Yuji, saying this is a player who's, like you said, fresh out of solo queue, but he's learning so fast.
And I'm happy that we're talking about jungler supports for FlyQuest, but what we also want to highlight going into today is the mid lane matchup between these two, because these are two players we've seen a lot of growth from over the split, and specifically from TSM side. I teased it. We heard today from the TSM FTX socials that they are actually playing Takeover in LCS this weekend. If you're tuning into the show because you just found out that news as well, we're going to talk about Takeover as a player and what you can expect from him, because again, Magical, like you had said, Takeover is a player that has had a lot of growth over this split.
Yeah, but first, let's go over Spyrex just because we have the replays for that.
Fair enough. All right, then, Cubby, talk to me about Spyrax, Takeover's opposition on the Rift today.
So Spyrax, he's someone fresh out of collegiate, of course, for this split, playing with Maryville University. I think that Spyrax is an interesting story because he actually stepped in for Maryville in the round of 8. Halfway through the tournament, they felt like we have a better chance to win with Spyrax playing on the team. And I think this was like the first sign of growth from Spyrax, but he was still primarily someone that was known as a solo queue player. He had 2 accounts in top 30. The only thing keeping him out of solo queue or scouting grounds was him playing too many champs in solo queue, not enough of the same champions in solo queue. I think we've seen moments of his flexibility, but more so also him improving, just being more consistent with how he's able to move around the map and function with his team. I think he's been a big centerpiece of more of the scaling compositions, with Victor being his most successful champion, really have helped FlyQuest get a lot of wins.
But then you
All
look
right.
on the other side and you look at
Now
it,
it's your
Takeover.
time.
Yep, this is my time. Now I can do it
Mhm.
because you saw the clips from last Proving Grounds from Takeover. He's someone, he lives up to the name. He takes over in that series against Cloud9. That's why I had a touch on that before. He was playing phenomenally on Ari. He was the one setting up these fights, setting up the plays. It just tragically fell short. Even his Akali was absolutely monstrous with his positioning, diving under turrets to get a triple kill to start off the game with a great start. It's just unfortunately the elements around him that didn't fully come together to get those victories and find that actual nexus.
So,
And
yeah, go for it, Cubby.
I think the thing with Takeover, and something that I think a lot of LCS fans might be able to take solace in, is yes, TSM Academy are the 10th place team that we have in Academy. But I think a lot of their improvements, I think it could be fair for some LCS fans to say, like, oh, you know what? Shenyi came in and they started winning more games. Like, that's the difference, right? I actually think I credit Takeover more.
Yeah.
I think that he had a lot of early game leads, early season, in which he would just have a disastrous mid game fight or make one or two really bad decisions, get caught out, that would throw the lead for TSM. They'd end up dropping games from there. I think a big part of them finding more wins has been Takeover not making those same mistakes, playing mid game fights better, like in some of the highlights we just saw. And that's been a big difference for TSM. One of the reasons they're experiencing some more success.
Awesome to hear for TSM fans. This is, of course, the ones that are tuning in to see what is Takeover all about and how is he going to perform. Well, we don't have to wait much longer because I'm hearing that we're ready for pick and ban. So Magical, take it away as we get ready for game number 1.
Thank you, Kangas. We'll see you after the break for some fun shenaniganeries again. But we got to get into this game.
What is it with that word?
It's my word.
It's your word. Is it in Webster?
Probably not. It's my word.
Okay. I feel like, got to stick to the book here, Mad Magical.
No.
You're always throwing books at me.
Look, I create the books. That's what I do. I create all this stuff like you see these teams create.
You cooked it up in the lab.
Yeah. And
Okay.
hey, transitioning, we look also at what the players and the teams are now creating in this championship. Like, bans have already commenced. We've got 3 on the side of FlyQuest, Lee Sin, Rise, Jinx. But the other side, 2 marksman bans, the expected ones on red side, Theory and Caitlyn, but also taking away that Thresh. But Aphelios has been left open. We saw in the previous series that the Jinx was the one left open. It wasn't the Aphelios. This time around, that is the option.
And this is curious to me as the only... Instinct's only played 4 champs this split. It's been 25 games between both Jinx and Aphelios. And I'm curious to see what Instinct ends up picking up into the Aphelios. Now, I am always a fan of like Senna Cho'Gath, Senna Sion lanes. I think that Senna combos have been somewhat forgotten about when it comes to playing into Aphelios. But it looks like so far the answers are, this is going to be an interesting one. So Thresh is banned. They take away the Tahm Kench, the other safety net for Aphelios, and they're pairing it up with the Xayah, who did see some buffs on this patch. They added crit ratios to her rip, so that E when you pull back the feathers. So a little bit, I'm curious if we see poke Xayah, which is what I'm expecting, but this is a new champ for Instinct, and one that we have not seen pretty much any Xayah. We've seen minimal Xayah in Academy.
That's why I was so shocked by it. It's a new champion for Instinct. He's played it in the past, sure, but it's a different style than we've seen in this split. But it also left the Gwen open. They didn't touch it in that second rotation. We've seen that Gwen, on this patch especially, has been permanently banned by most teams. They see it as that powerful of a tool that they cannot let the other team have it, but FlyQuest get it in second rotation.
And I honestly think this lines up okay for TSM because they get Akali. This is something that's been one of Viper's best champions. It's something that Takeover can play as well, so it's flexible on the side of TSM, and it plays really well into the Gwen. So I'm curious if they shift the Gwen into the jungle and try and find a better lane matchup for Philip in the top side, or if Philip just ends up eating that matchup. That is something that we have seen some of the teams do. As we cruise through the rest of the draft, it looks like FlyQuest are assuming that Akali is going to be top side, so they're going to take away 2 of the counters, 2 of the better matchups they see into the Ahri, in the Victor that we notably had for Spyrax being one of his best champions. He's going to take that away from Takeover along with the Silas.
So I know you're going to hate me for this, especially because Tahm Kench has been picked by TSM. But could this possibly be a Renata angle?
Nope. Renata, it's unplayable into Tahm Kench. It is a brutal matchup, especially after the hot fixes. So I don't expect to see any of that. That said, we are going to see an Orianna. So that will be Takeover playing that mid. Now here's the big decision for FlyQuest. Do we see them pivot to something like a Renekton top, try to play that into Akali and put the Gwen in the jungle? Or do they take something like a Hecarim, something that they feel like Yuji can play in the jungle and run from there?
Yeah, I'm looking at how they're going to draft this time around. Probably grab that support first, but no, they actually will grab the Hecarim.
Okay.
It is going to be Philip playing at this Gwen.
So it will be the Hecarim. I'm expecting that we see potentially a Trinity Force Hecarim. Then again, it's going to be Chem Tank probably.
Yeah, probably.
Given that you have enough damage with the Gwen. So
Yep.
It's going to be the tank Hecarim build. Looking to full clear. And this is something that I think is important for FlyQuest. One of the adaptations that they specifically noted from last week was
What?
they played into Hecarim all 4 games. And FlyQuest had a tough last week. They only went 1-3. So
Copy.
I like to see them picking that up now. And I know that you want to talk about the Pyke because that's the pick for Diamond.
Right. That now I was thinking Lulu, I was thinking enchanters, enchantresses that could pair up with Aphelios. That's something we've seen in the past go in this
The
bot
hard
lane.
counter, man.
But no, it is going to be Pyke and the Viego for Hyper. This is some interesting drafts for both teams.
It's Reset City again. Right? You have Ahri and Pyke against a Viego for Hyper, which is the last pick for TSM. So I think I put a lot of priority on finding fights, finding the engages. And that is something I think TSM's comp is lacking a little bit. They really don't have an engage. Their engage is going to be Viper going in, maybe trying to set up a shockwave with the Orianna. I think the Akali is like one of the main ways they're going to have to find a way to get in the backline. It's either that or angles. So I think a lot of importance is going to be put on TSM, making sure that their side lanes are winning so they are able to set up the angles and get pushed to kind of counter the fact they don't have the hardest engage that they have drafted for themselves. And for FlyQuest, I think it's all about getting on this Orianna and taking Takeover out of the fight first. And if you can use this Hecarim ult to split the Tahm Kench up and away from the Orianna and the Xayah, I think that's where FlyQuest is going to find the most success with their fights.
Interesting. By the way, I'm definitely writing these down. If everyone at home should follow along, get a notebook, write down notes of what Cubby says, because he's big brain. He knows what he's talking about.
I try my best, you know. We try and get things close to right. So for the Pyke, I know this is something that you wanted to hit on, Mad Magical. This is a big change from Diamond. I think that Diamond has been the main engage, has been the leader of this team in the game. He's the one that has the most experience as well. This is a counter that we have seen emerging, something that Busio has actually been playing a ton of in Champs Queue. It is Pyke into Thresh and Tahm Kench. One of the reasons it's so good is that shields don't matter against Pyke ult. So if you get the Tahm Kench, though, you can get that reset. And it's something that it also enables you to play these early lane phases really, really aggressively. So I have my eyes on Diamond this game. I think one of the things we have seen FlyQuest do that has helped improve their play a lot is Yuji and Diamond syncing up and playing as a team. If Diamond's able to get priority, he's able to start running around with Yuji. Maybe FlyQuest can put together an explosive early to mid game that can really break what TSM wants to do.
And we'll have to find out whether or not that's going to come to fruition for the side of FlyQuest. The Pyke, we've seen played by Busio in Academy. Didn't have the best performance. Maybe in lane it was able to accomplish what it needed to, but when it came to the late game, when it came to positioning, not so much. This draft from FlyQuest, when we look at it, has a lot of elements that can make sure that it's going to work. You have good late game scaling in that Gwen, in even Ahri and Aphelios. Then on the other side, you talked about the reset cities, as well as the side lane, the domination that TSM need to set up to make sure they can just split push for days, and there's not much you can worry about from FlyQuest.
And that side lane, it really is so important for TSM, just given they are lower engage. But also, that is a way that you can keep down the Gwen, which is so scary. We have seen Akali. It is a very good matchup into the Gwen. Do have to pause as Hyper. They are going to get the early flash.
All right, nice. I like it. Not much more.
I mean, can't complain.
Yeah, there's not much more I can say about it.
It's a freebie.
Exactly. It's like golf clap. You're used to that.
So, yeah. Now, I think a good part for TSM, I think one of their strengths this season is this is a team that has struggled with some of their early games. I believe that they still are the team that has the worst early game. Viper is not a part of that. He is still winning a lot of his lane states in the top side, and this is a matchup where Akali is his most played. He has 2 wins on it, which is a big deal when your team only has 7. And I really want to see if Viper can kind of be the hero for TSM. It feels like he really has been that individual in a lot of TSM's wins.
He's facing off against Josh's favorite in Philip in that top lane. Someone who has had some pretty high highs. Doing really well with some of his picks. The Gwen, too. Another powerful option and a powerful champion he's been able to utilize in previous games. But going up against Viper's Akali is going to be a bit rough. I'm curious to see how both of them played since both started Ignite.
It's something where Akali, if you are able to land that shuriken flip, that's where you have the kill pressure. And it will be on the bounce back. So Viper is going to wait for this wave to crash and then try and threaten on the bounce back for Philip. And this is an okay start, I should say, for FlyQuest. And honestly, a very different look for them because Yuji is not one that loves to play full clears. And I think this is the first draft that I've seen from FlyQuest where they actually are picking a jungler that does full clear, and it's something that they lost into last week. And I know their coaching staff specifically highlighted having trouble dealing with Hecarim because of his ability to full clear and just get ahead in the jungle matchup. So I really want to see if FlyQuest can punish with the Hecarim, can show that they learned from some of their losses last week and show they're continuing to level up as a squad.
But we have to shift our focus into that bot lane. The flip from Diamond gets a good amount of poke to stick onto Yurson. Trying to get control back, since at the moment, Saya and Tahm Kench are able to kind of bully around Tomo on this Aphelios, where he feels that he has to stay pretty far back just to get a little bit of extra safety from the damage Instinct puts out.
Yeah, this is the poke lane for Zaya with the Aerie, so I'm expecting that we see the lethality build come out. So a lot of emphasis on the Q and the Q spam from Instinct. We'll see if he's able to make good use of it, as we are just going to see Diamond continue to kind of aggressively trade. He's not able to weave in a lot of the auto attacks, so that does mean that Tahm Kench... I like how Yurson's just trading back with the Q whenever Diamond gets the dash. It's at least weathering the storm in the bot lane here.
Doing their best. Make sure they're staying afloat in this bot lane. Both sides still want to play a bit aggressively. You can see Diamond constantly pushes himself up, tries to see if he can get Instinct and Yurson out of the lane, especially since Instinct doesn't really have that much mana. But it's not even that's getting the attention from the junglers at the moment. Both are just hard clearing. As you said, it's a Hecarim. Always wants a hard clear, and that allows Diego a lot of time extra too to clear out his waves, try to build up those items, the 2-item power spec that everyone always talks about with Viego. It works well into something like a Hecarim.
Now, this is a matchup where I do like seeing the Viego try and attack a little bit earlier, and I like how he's making his way up top. This wave's shoving away from Philip. Viper has Ignite. They could look to get aggressive.
Doesn't have Immune anymore, so waiting it out, looking for the dive. They got the stun. Shuriken flip in. First blood for Viper.
Oh, no.
Oh,
Hyper. He didn't eat the extra tower shot and ends up going down. Viper, of course, doesn't have flash. That's huge for Philip, as he's going to be able to get back to that lane and catch most of it.
Oh, that's devastating. But in the bot lane, we're seeing a bit more devastation for TSM with Instinct's Ignite on top of him. Diamond picks up the kill. He might die to Yurson, but it's going to be an ADC for support.
Wins this.
Yurson does. He's got damage. Look for the tongue lash with the double kill for Yurson.
You gotta respect the Kench, man. He is so strong right now in the bot lane. I know that I've been really asking for teams to kind of change up their priority around the Tahm Kench and blind it. And even in the counter matchup, Yurson is at least able to trade back too, as trades across the map. And I think that bot lane trade's huge for TSM, because we were setting up that Diamond has to be the one to move around the map with Yuji, get the ball rolling for FlyQuest. That really slows it down.
It looked like it was going to be devastating at first. It was a good pull from Diamond, but it's the turnaround that works out. But we got to go back to live, because Takeover dies to Spyrex immediately. Diamond, he shows up for a little bit of assistance, but it was pretty much Spyrex just asserting dominance in this mid lane beforehand.
When you're on the pike, it's all about getting out of the lane, trying to snowball, trying to get those kills, because they're worth double gold if you use it with your ultimate. No ult yet for Diamond, but already able to get something done. This is now going to give Instinct a little bit of a scare. Will be respected, but I think it's really important that Diamond at least is able to recover after they got 2v2'd. They do get the wave in, and I think Tomo, he was at least able to hit that first item spike. So I like where the Zaya's at the moment, but at least FlyQuest aren't slowing down too much, and we'll see if Diamond can continue to get out of this lane. It's so important if we're going to take this pike. Like to see him already impacting mid. Want to see if he can do it again.
Waiting for that rotation. It's actually Yurson on the hunt instead. Maybe making up for a little bit of the weakness that Takeover just suffered in this mid lane. The essential solo kill from Spyrex, even if Diamond showed up for a brief moment to help
there was
him
some
out.
help.
Yeah, it was a little bit of help.
There was enough help. It wasn't a solo kill.
I'm pretty sure Spyrex was going to get the kill regardless.
Now, what I do like from TSM on the response, Hyper and Yurson both hovering, they now have 2 control wards for Takeover. Really important, as they need to make sure he has that extra safety, as he does not have flash anymore. And you can see Diamond now going to clear at least one of them out. So they are trying to get control back, but that at least gives Takeover the ability to play back in this lane, try and freeze it, and try and survive that way. But that should be a giant red X for FlyQuest. I think Orianna's the pick that they have to attack and can attack the most successfully. And now that Ori doesn't have flash, I want to see FlyQuest return to that mid lane and try and take this Orianna out as much as they can during this window.
Viper suffering a bit in the top lane. Now down in experience as well as a frozen lane state for Akali. Goes for
He's got TP.
Yeah, he's
It's
got
cool.
TP, but it's only because he has to. Now he's falling behind a little bit in experience. That's a massive minion wave that Philip gets here that he's essentially just utilizing to continue to have a massive advantage against Akali.
I would pause.
I would too, but Viper, you just
Oh,
died.
no.
I told you, it's a massive advantage for Philip.
Oh, I mean, it is now as Philip finds the solo kill, and I think Viper just didn't mean to take the tower shots. That was the big difference as Philip with the Ignite, the tower shot connecting. That's enough damage for him to get through the rest of it. And Philip, I think, sees Hyper here, intelligently going to back off. He just walks away with that solo kill as he punches back, and we set this up as, this is a big opportunity for Viper. He's on one of his best champions. He's been a big carry for TSM. That's the second play that he's gone for where it's been turned on its head by Philip, who has gotten no help and is up in this lane matchup.
He has got his kingdom set up in top lane against Viper. He gets the minion wave. He gets a recall by a blasting wand as well. Not quite at that Rift Maker, but he's still got a lot of advantage that he can lord over Viper, who's got no TP, no Ignite. Even if Philip doesn't have it either, it's still going to work out well for Gwen.
Now, on the flip side of that, oddly enough, your top laner gets solo killed. TSM were still able to pick up the Rift Herald, which I think is important. This is still the most important early game objective. But I think that because of how the bot lane has gone as well, when you take this poke Xayah, you're expecting priority, especially into an Aphelios early. I think because of the support counter matchup, it's something that TSM has not been able to obtain. And I think there's a good chance that FlyQuest can try and punch back and take this dragon, which would be, I think, a nice prize for them, given that I think how this early game was set up, especially the bot side, it's not one where FlyQuest had like a hard winning bot lane. I was expecting the Xayah Tahm Kench to do a little bit more work, but I think Tomo and Diamond have been doing a good job at standing strong in this lane.
Having Diamond escape the lane and rotate into mid lane to get a kill for Ahri works out well. Tomo feels comfortable, even if he's not necessarily ahead.
He's farming.
Yeah, he's just farming up. He's cool. He's chilling.
And, I mean, it's a crit Aphelios versus a poke Xayah, so if it's an even CS trade, you'd love to be on the Aphelios end of that. Things are A-okay down here for FlyQuest.
They are, and this is where we have to ask ourselves, for TSM's sake, where do they attack next? What do they do to fix some of the issues that they are suffering at this moment? Do they go to the top lane? Do they send Hyper back up here to help out Viper, get the Hyper-Viper duo again? Or instead, do they send Hyper into the spot lane? Utilize the poke Xayah that they are building, that lethality Xayah that we've been seeing slowly come into the meta, and crack some plates or even the turret itself.
I think they're going to use it to take the dragon first, but FlyQuest is actually poking around this, and TSM are scared to start it, so they missed their window where they had the crash. Aphelios is now countered, and that window's gone, so TSM being a little bit hesitant to start the objective because of the strength of FlyQuest. Now gives FlyQuest a chance to do it. Now Hyper is a little bit caught.
Forced to use the ult to escape as well.
That's it.
That
That's
is gone. That is easily taken by just the threat of FlyQuest getting Hyper out of this river.
I think a little bit of indecision there from TSM, but also I can respect it. I think it would be a very risky 4v4 at the moment, especially given Spyrax on this Ahri with the kill. Takeover just going Merc Shreds doesn't really have damage yet at this point of the game, so I think it would be a winning fight for FlyQuest. TSM decide to seed, get the objective over, and as we transition into the mid game, it's a little bit of a slower early game that we have here in Mad Magical. A little bit even. I'm still like, this is the struggle that I have with the comp that TSM has built, is that if they don't have these winning sides or these winning solos, I don't know what they transition to in the mid game, and this is where the lack of engage, I think, really hurts them.
Well, especially if a charm like that lands on a takeover. The flash is all for naught. He gets devoured by Yursun, but they can trade back that kill with the shield, waiting it out. It's a 2v3. Diamond is low. He is speared by Hyper, stealing his soul, looking for Spyrax. His own flip, his own stun, getting a flash out of Spyrax to survive. Now they got to be careful. Here comes the pony, charging on along. He can go over this wall with ult. There it is, to pick up the kill on a takeover.
Weast are able to respond, but I think this gives TSM priority as Hyper sprinting down to the bot lane. He should drop this Rift Herald. Should be plates going over to TSM.
Big plays from Yurasan, even if it's just a simple devour, it's a simple ability, that was
Yeah.
enough to delay the fight where they could turn around the fight. They could pick up the kill onto Diamond, and now they get that charge. It doesn't fully get more than 2 plates, but it's still a lot. This is going to be the big issue, is that they are overextended. They already had the reset from Hyper. He's not in the spot lane. They got a good flip from Diamond, but now he's getting chased down. And look who's returned. It is Hyper here to look for the execution onto Diamond. He's got it, and he's got resets for days. He's got his own stun, and this is what we've seen before. He can easily clean up house from FlyQuest.
Hyper's Viego coming up big, bad magical, as it's an overextension from FlyQuest. Their bot lane, this Pyke, they're trying to make plays around it, trying to set up for this ult, but Diamond just wasn't able to pull the trigger, and Hyper bounces back.
It's a big bounce back, too. Right when he has the Divine Tsundere as well, needing one more item to really feel fully empowered, but it doesn't matter to him. He still feels confident with how he's able to play.
Might have a second look at that, might not.
We'll see.
But I think the big thing for Hyper is, we have to pause.
It's a
Viper.
2-level lead
in
for
trouble.
Philip. Jump, 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 go the scissors.
And I think this game, I think this is a nice moment to kind of highlight as, we do have a second look.
There we go.
Real quick, gonna go over this bot lane play. So props to Instinct and Yurasan for playing this out, because Instinct, that rip was huge onto the Pyke. That's what gets Diamond so low. Also the Tongue Lash, that's what slows him down, enables the space for Hyper to get in here and take down this Pyke, turn this play back in TSM's favor. But I think this is a good moment to highlight a couple players that we haven't really talked about a whole lot in Academy. Hyper, 3-0-1 on this Viego. He is someone that I think has struggled a bit for TSM Academy. He's having a huge game on a champion that we know that Hyper can play well, really stepping up big in this game. And on the flip side, we set this game up for Viper in the top side to kind of be this big hero, to be the one winning the side lane for TSM. Philip has totally shut that down on his own, and because of the overperformance of these two players in these matchups, how they usually play out, we have a really interesting game state where it's still rather close, but it feels like there's some strength in TSM with wherever they move their jungler, and Philip just completely broke the side lane plan for TSM. So I want to see if FlyQuest can utilize Philip in that side lane to make sure that TSM can't find these can't find these flank angles that we think their comp needs to do well in the later stages.
You know what's really funny, too? You talk about Viper not playing to the ability we know he's capable of, but Takeover 2, struggling in this lane against Spyrex. There's a reason why we kind of focus on both of these players in the pre-show. Spyrex has been a player who's been stepping up massively in this season. Even if FlyQuest don't have a winning record, this player has been getting better and better week by week.
And what we love to see in Academy, right? These guys stepping up, rookies, trying to get better. I know that right now in our Academy standings, the 3 teams that have the most experience and have the most LCS stage times, they're the 3 that are on top with CLG, Golden Guardians, and C9. We'll see 2 of those teams go toe-to-toe in our last set of the day. But it's good to see these teams that are rocking a couple more rookies, rocking some players that haven't been in the Academy yet, really start to perform, really start to learn these things that we expect competitive teams to be able to execute on this level, and step up and really show their own skill, show the reason they did find themselves in Academy in the first place.
They are the ones that get themselves this ability to really close it out. Looking to see how FlyQuest will position themselves, and if ever they can call in Philip to bring some reinforcements to this team. That is the member with the most gold, I think, at least I hope, for FlyQuest at this moment. 3-1 with the Rift Maker completed, working towards that Cosmic Drive. I'd have to assume he's got a lot in his inventory, a lot in his pocket to fight, and that's why they call him here, to make sure this Rift Herald gets a full charge.
This is a nice moment from FlyQuest, because they use this Rift Herald to nat the push mid, and now they're transitioning this into the Dragon. Now Viper, he TP'd bot. TSM, they're looking for a fight. Philip's lagging a little bit behind. They're going to get the Dragon, but what happens after?
That's what we got to watch. Philip is waiting to see if it's his
Viper
time to
has
shine,
the
but here
angle.
comes Viper. Goes into the Twilight Shroud and sees the charm all along the way. FlyQuest somehow disengaged that fight perfectly.
And if you aren't able to sync up the Akali flank with the Shockwave, there's nothing that TSM can do to hold you in place. So we saw the flash rip miss from Instinct. I think that was an okay attempt to try and find the angle, but TSM not able to find it. They burn a summoner, they burn a TP, and the flash on their most squishy member. And now FlyQuest just get a chance to reset, get out on the map for free. And now Philip just gets to go back to the top side and do what Philip's been doing all game. That's shove out and keep on winning.
This is why we kind of highlighted before that we look at FlyQuest and their scaling options they have. This Gwen, the big one. That is the big character they can rely on. But Hyper is also scaling. He's 3-0 at this moment.
There's no turret here.
He's doing his best to defend Spyrex and Diamond. But he's still getting that defensive posturing coming in. No knockup onto Spyrex. TP behind from Philip. Never used it before. And now Gobble onto UG. But they are the ones getting flanked. They spin him right back up. They got the damage. And look at Hyper. He's got to be careful. Flashed away to be able to survive. But wait a minute. Hyper RKO out of nowhere. Like you said, he landed the E. They got the kill onto one, but it's only a shutdown. Philip is taken out of the equation. Viper. What the hell, man?
He landed the backflip in the top lane, and he was able to follow that TP, which was important because it enables him to trade back on Philip, enables TSM to get the shutdown. And just like that, that play for TSM that it looked like Philip's TP was going to turn on its head, it stays even. And I'd say TSM getting the shutdown on Philip trades up.
I mean, I just want to watch a replay of the flip all the way across the map. But right there, Instinct just forced to use the ult to survive. Not the biggest worry.
All right, if we can get a replay of Akali doing all these backflips. All right, here comes the fun. We're going to get a second look. Viper says, yep, I'm going. Cross-map, worldwide tour, baby. He ends up getting involved in the bot side.
There we go.
I feel like the ambulance is like more appropriate there. But yeah, him landing that second shuriken backflip as well. Nets the kill, gets the shutdown on the Philip. Shout out to our production team for making sure that they can make that one happen as well. We're having some fun here. Now takeover.
Goes Golden.
He's going to have to get out of this one. This could be good for TSM.
Your son is here, though, to defend him. So is Hyper. They focus on UG. Shockwave brings him back in, and he has no ult, like you said. It's going to be the Needlework coming in from Philip to do his best to disengage.
And Spyrax, he was TPing to support that play, but it was late. It nets nothing, so TSM get another cooldown out of FlyQuest. And it's just FlyQuest pushing a little bit too hard because UG, you know, looking for that play on takeover. I can understand it. He's a little bit far up in the side then. You want to bounce back with a cross map, but he doesn't have that ult. And TSM respond in kind. A good hover to protect takeover. It pays off with a kill and a TP being netted for free as well.
You know what I find funny here, Cubby?
Yes?
Is that at the beginning of the, right before this game, when we looked at championships, like, look at how these two teams were going to win, we had highlighted TSM and their solo laners split push potential they have for the team. But it's not them who are doing the best. It is Hyper and Your Son looking like the carriers. And then on the flip side, it is Philip and Spyrex, the two split push, the two side laners, or the solo laners for FlyQuest that are the ones doing the best.
We always try and prep, get our accurate guesses in, but I'm glad that these players can be throwing us some curveballs and keeping us surprised. We try and honor some of the good play that we've seen. I think that on the side of TSM, that Hyper Yurson really playing together as a duo, this is a good sign for this team because before it was the swap with Shenya and Yurson, this is what TSM were struggling with the most. Hyper and Yurson were just not working together on the map. And the fact that we have seen them making moves together to try and attack the sides of FlyQuest and some of the overextensions that we've seen out of them, that's a good sign of improvement from TSM as well, even when Yurson wasn't playing with this roster the last few weeks.
Oh, and that's the thing. He was playing in the LCS, but wow, the damage onto Diamond. He is squishy as hell. Taken out by the solo kill from Viper. He's still fighting back against Spyrex. He's got a lot of damage with the charge connecting, and UG saves his life.
I still think it's a trade up for the side of FlyQuest. They take down a solo laner for support. We'll see what TSM get on the cross map as takeover has crashed away. Philip has to respect it. He has the needlework if he wants to clear out this wave, but is going to cede it over to TSM. So TSM getting that objective. They're trying to go for two things at once. Instinct could be in trouble.
Nice gobble up comes in from Yurson to keep his ADC going.
UG had ult, but not going to use it. TSM now rotating over. Might try and lay siege, but them sticking around here, this could be dangerous.
I think that's why they didn't go for it. Oh, poor Diamond. He got eviscerated.
I think FlyQuest were prepping a collapse. They knew that they had Spyrax getting back out on the map, but Diamond walking in, that's punishing. That means that they can't keep on stacking up the dragons.
Oh.
That's going to be one going over to TSM as they break the soul plan for FlyQuest, and TSM get in this game. Now, as time goes on, the scaling, I do favor FlyQuest scaling. I think that Hecarim gets really tanky. I think the one kind of saving grace for TSM is going to be a Viego reset or Orianna in these team fights. But I think that time does favor FlyQuest given the Aphelios versus Xayah. And so I want to see if TSM, with some of these small wins they've been able to find, Mad Magical, their comp is not good at taking Baron. But I think they can win a decisive team fight and use that to try and take Baron. And I think it's about time TSM starts looking for that, as both their solo laners are looking top. Spyrax.
Nice charm. Spyrax, double dash out of there.
He wasn't playing any games with Takeover and Viper in that top side. As see if any games can be played with Tomo mid. As looks like Instinct Yurasan just going to get some shove. A little bit of quiet time on the map. Mad Magical. I know that in the pregame we praised TSM and specifically Takeover for improving in the mid game, for not getting caught out as much, for being able to transition leads a little bit better. I know that Yursan's in the roster this time around with Shenyi. I really think that Takeover has been essential in transitioning some of these mid games for TSM, and the reason why they have been able to put a couple more wins on the board. I want to see if they can do it again with this lineup in this game, because it's going to be tough. They don't have a ton of engage against this Aphelios. You're going to have to get creative as the game moves on.
Well, this is why I'm looking towards Hyper. Hyper has been playing out of his mind so far in this game, but it's about continuing that to the bitter end, all the way until you take that Nexus. 4, 1, and 3 has built up that Death Dance. Power spikes abound for the jungler of TSM.
And he is going to have to be huge in these fights because he is the one with the gold. And I think that any hopes of TSM winning these team fights do rely on Hyper finding a reset, as TSM might be in trouble. They're looking for a dive. FlyQuest.
Oh, they're focusing Hyper, too.
Hyper.
That is Hyper gobbled up to keep alive, but they lost Instinct on the other side. They got the kill on a diamond, but what at cost? They've lost the ADC. The engage didn't work for the Shockwave, though. Nice. It was only able to do a little bit of damage. They got the resets coming in from Hyper on the other side. And here's Viper, the Hyper duo. They're chasing down the members of FlyQuest. They've got the dive already possible with Philip going golden, but Spyrax, he is waiting it out. That's a kill for Viper, and they look to get the flash out of Spyrax.
And TSM, Viper's going to barely survive. They win the fight, and I got to credit Takeover for finding that Shockwave. I know that it was Viper with the angle, but we talked about how difficult it was going to be to find a Shockwave on the members of FlyQuest. Takeover found one on both the carries for FlyQuest somehow in the back half of this.
Yeah, and I said it didn't really do much damage, but it kept them locked down. It split up the fight. It made it possible for them to turn around and actually get the members of FlyQuest.
I think it was the most important part of this fight, because look at that. You found Tomo, Spyrax, you set it up for Viper to get a free kill on Aphelios, and Tomo wasn't even able to flash out. Then on the back half, Hyper going the flash, Philip going golden. It wasn't enough as Viper lands the perfect Shuriken backflip to take him down too. TSM played that skirmish out really nicely, and I think a lot of credit goes to Takeover connecting with that Shockwave against the two carries of FlyQuest. That's something where I thought it was going to be really difficult for him to find that, but FlyQuest gave him the opportunity. Takeover takes it, he runs with it, and that's going to help TSM at least get a little bit more gold in their pockets before this next drag.
Now Hyper gets focused by Diamond, but he takes way more damage from the members of TSM. He can re-engage. Hyper's got Spyrax nearly down, and look at Takeover. Look at how they're fighting right now. They focused off Tomo, so he can't re-engage. Philippines in the backline, but he already dies to Takeover. While Hyper gets the kill on the other side onto Spyrax. The bot lane, you got Yuji and Tomo running, flashing back towards the turret.
And we teased that TSM needed to find a decisive skirmish to try and take this Baron. I think that might be the opportunity.
Yeah.
As they've started it up, and FlyQuest, I think they went for two plays at once. It wasn't synced. TSM turned everything on its back from, once again, fantastic play from Hyper's Viego. He's stepping up big, helping TSM knock down FlyQuest, and they need these wins. They want to make top 6 improving grounds. There is still that backdoor opportunity for them, but they pretty much have to win out. And this is a different TSM that I feel like we're seeing this game with this roster. Hyper and Yursan's ability to work together. This is a big difference from the last time we saw the iteration of this roster, Mad Magical. And it's helping TSM overcome this improving, scaling FlyQuest squad.
Both teams look to level up in this second half of the round robin. See the growth from many of these players, but TSM, this is where I have to applaud a team at the very bottom of the barrel, bouncing back. Even in the loss to Cloud9, it was well fought all the way to the end. They never really just rolled over and played down, just took it over into the end. But here, they are playing aggressively. They're looking for these points. They're even utilizing Hyper to dive underneath 2 turrets for Tomo, but he's locked down for way too long, so he dies to the exit coming in from the members of FlyQuest. Phillips on the other side. He's got that needlework available. This is a lot of damage that will start to come through onto these members. Not going to connect the first one, but the second one will get a lot of damage on a takeover, but they just have to retreat instead.
Now, Dragon is up. We'll see. Spyrax is actually rotating back up. He does have the TP. It looks like FlyQuest are just going to take the kill on Hyper and still give the Dragon. Keep in mind, time is their friend. But Hyper, a bit too deep, a bit of an overextension going for that turret. TSM just can't follow up that play. FlyQuest able to find a good punish. Nice bounce back from them.
But at the same time, it is still a delay of dragons for FlyQuest. 2 Hex Tech dragons for TSM is going to make sure that they continue to keep up with FlyQuest.
And it's interesting because I know that, you know, a lot of TSM, we said that they have been playing better mid games. Like, they've been doing a better job of transitioning some of the early leads. We do have to pause as Viper.
Philip just got his ult up too. That's a lot of damage, but he could not do it enough. It's a shutdown for Yuji.
Bit of an overextension on the side lane there from Viper, as a lot of his team was coming out off reset still. But these are the stakes that could get costly as time goes on. Because keep in mind, Philip, he's ahead of the curve in this matchup. This is a matchup where you are losing to Akali. You are not good in the 1v1 if Akali is able to connect with that E. Philip continues to overperform in this matchup. And if TSM aren't able to get shove in sides as this game goes on, it gets really difficult for them to find angles, find engages, as shockwaves, like we saw in that mid lane fight, shouldn't be able to connect on the back line of FlyQuest. I think that was a huge play from Takeover to really help ensure TSM had this powerful mid game where they do have this lead, but mistakes like that from TSM, that's going to slow things down. And once again, we like when things get slowed down for FlyQuest. You have that crit 80 carry. You have this Hecarim that can frontline. It's a traditional front to back that FlyQuest can make good use of.
And as we get later into the game, almost 30 minutes in, we have to do a bit of an item check-in. Guardian's Angel or Hyper, well, no longer do they have to worry about Hyper getting caught out a little bit exposed and too far out. They can actually reset. They can make sure that Yurson can run over, save his life once he respawns, but also take over, having completed his own third item with that blighting duel, get more damage onto Yuji.
And should have a Void ready in time, whereas TSM, you can see them trying to take control over this bot side river. Will do so as this counter matchup, the Pyke into the Tahm Kench. It's one that's really good early, but Yurson's level 12 now, and Diamond has gotten picked off quite a bit in this game. And Pyke's a risky pick. It's squishy. I think TSM have dealt with it rather well. And grouping up as 5, they're actually going to burn a TP to try and contest the side lane. So this is a lot of CS being granted over to Viper. It's preventing a response from FlyQuest, but I think that's important because it means that is at least one cooldown that they don't have access to set up this next dragon.
We continue to see FlyQuest win out in these side lanes, getting the pressure, forcing that TP out of Viper just to make sure the tier 2 doesn't fall in the top lane. FlyQuest are utilizing this Gwen Ahri pick to its fullest.
It's been a nice look from FlyQuest. I think that what we were really looking for is like Yuji and Diamond being able to get a little bit more work done in the mid game. I think I credit Yurson and Hyper quite a bit for breaking some of those plans. What I want to see, though, from FlyQuest is that, yes, they are getting some priority in the sides, but we haven't really seen them use that yet. We haven't seen them be able to collapse upon TSM. And I think that's the next step for FlyQuest. And they're going to have to hopefully set up for the upcoming objectives, because I know we've been focusing a lot on Dragon. That's in 90 seconds, but Baron's in about a minute.
Yeah.
And with both objectives now on the board, if FlyQuest are able to get control over the side lane, I think they can get river control over 1. That's going to make things difficult for TSM, because keep in mind, their engage is pretty much Viper backflipping into a Shroud, or trying to find a Shockwave combo off that. They do not have great engage tools. So if FlyQuest are able to navigate around that by getting river control, I think it's really tough for TSM with some of these objectives.
Well, they don't have the greatest engage tools. They do have good disengage tools. And this is where we look towards FlyQuest and splitting apart Tahm Kench from Orianna, as you had talked about previously. They need to do that if they want to find success, because otherwise they can disengage, re-engage so easily. It's the catch and release.
Now, curiously enough, FlyQuest actually shifting some of their priority away from the Dragon and towards the Baron, as they have 4 stacked up mid. Spyrax fixed that top wave, so this now gives Takeover the ability to hit the bot wave. And FlyQuest, this is a little bit too soon. They can't start the Baron yet, so Takeover should be able to get a pretty big crash of waves on the bot side.
Takeover.
And this will give TSM the ability to respond. I think FlyQuest, they have to start this immediately.
Yeah, they do. There you go. I was waiting for that. Takeover needed to crash the wave before he could rotate up. So FlyQuest had to answer that. They had to immediately turn onto the Baron, forcing out this TP on the other side.
Okay.
They've got 2 TPs down onto the TSM. They can completely get off of this and just disengage themselves, and it's still a win.
Yeah. Yeah, they just push FlyQuest off. Now they have access to mid lane. That gives them the fast track to Dragon, too. And I'm kind of curious about, FlyQuest. I feel like they could have sat in that bot lane river without pulling the Baron and tried to secure this Dragon safely, but
Agreed.
maybe they don't feel like they're comfortable team fighting at the moment. Maybe they feel like they need more items on Tomo because they're going to give this over for free. And that's now sole point going over to TSM.
Start the Baron. I think you just go for the YOLO Baron at this point. You know that he's on the Dragon. Start it up. It's too late at this point.
So Dragon's done. TSM don't see anyone mid. They're going to think that FlyQuest either reset or they could be on this Baron. Your son's about to check it. TSM just found out.
Down to 25% health, and here comes Hyper and Instinct on the other side, but it is low. You have to engage now. It's stolen! Hyper's playing out of his mind in this game, and they can re-engage the fight onto Philip. He jumps over the wall to survive, but Hyper's already stolen the Baron. That is the biggest win TSM could ever hope for.
They just got their cake and ate it too. It's FlyQuest. You called it, man, Magical. Them waiting, them delaying to start that Baron. That bought the time that Hyper needed to hop in. 50-50 it. He finds the steal. TSM are now pushing ahead, and they've all found a pick on Diamond. So I know Spyrax is back up, but I think this inhibitor has to be seeded.
I even wonder if this is just the game at this point. They can open up mid lane. They can make sure they can disengage, and then
Not quite.
The thing is
quite.
not in the fact that they're going to win right now, Cubbies. No. The fact that this game is now firmly in TSM's control.
Yes, TSM just took over the game off the steal from Hyper. I know they're on reset. Yeah, I'd love to get a replay, second look at that as production's queuing it up. This is close. I mean, they figured out that they were on the Baron when it was at 6K. This is a quick snap decision from Hyper. And no one stopped him getting out of the pit. He flashed. Yurson canceled the channel from Diamond, so he couldn't cast the Q to even have a chance of getting Viego out of it. And Hyper with the flash ult ends up making it work, walks away with the Baron. He's been the hero of TSM this game. And now we're just going to have to see if TSM can make sure they cash in this win.
Looking at Philip too, he jumps over the alcove. TSM not even going to check it. They'll let him recall, but they can re-engage. Hyper completely eviscerates Diamond once more in this game. Level 18. Poor Diamond is 1-9 on Pyke. This is TSM's game to win.
I know this was a different look, this game, from Yuji on the Hecarim. It's really opened things up for Hyper as FlyQuest.
This might be the last fight unless Philip can pull off a miracle. He's got GA pop.
That's big.
That's still just the GA. There are minions here to crash in and allow TSM to open up another lane.
It was on the right member. I mean, yes, they got GA, but it's not like you're burning everything on a solo laner that can TP back.
Sure.
So at least they got something out of Hyper. I think that the push is going to stop here, but once again, it's critical for TSM. They open up another lane, as you mentioned, my Magical, and TSM, they're actually getting a little playful with it. Yuji.
There's Yuji. Huge fear in the backline. They pulled in Takeover. They've split him from Tomcatch, but they couldn't do it enough. He gets gobbled up to survive, and the first Nexus turret falls. With the Moonlight Vigil, damage doing a little bit on the other side. It was a nice dodge with the Hex Gate. There was no death from below that worked out for Diamond. Instead, he's the one who finds death, and it's FlyQuest now retreating. The play works out for TSM.
Philip has ult back. Tomo has red-white. I think it's still tough for TSM to end, but they aren't looking to retreat. They still want to go for it.
They still got Baron. They've got only 3 members on the other side from FlyQuest. It's a 4v3, but finally they disengaged. They didn't have the minions in time.
They at least were able to get down one Nexus turret, and I want to get a second look at that fight. That was a little bit hectic, and I think for FlyQuest, they did exactly what we were looking for, man. Magical. Yuji splits up Takeover and Yurson, but the knockback, they weren't able to chain the charm into it. Yurson was able to flash and save him. So that big engage that FlyQuest tried to set up, they weren't able to cash it in, able to tragically escape using that Hex Gate. Yes, they were able to pick up a kill in the back half with Philip, but I think TSM honestly dodged what could have been a nice comeback for FlyQuest, because if that charm connects and they get Takeover, Spyrax gets a reset, I think they might have been able to snowball the fight from there. Just weren't able to pull it off, weren't quite able to put the pieces together. TSM get out scot-free.
They were able to split up the Tom Kench and Oriana initially, and it looked good out of the gates, but like you said, didn't amount to enough. TSM were able to battle back, get those wins, take an exit turret. Now they have control on this bottom quadrant. 45 seconds until a Hextech Soul is up and available for TSM.
And just one more good fight needed from TSM to win this. As you called out earlier, Matt Magical, 2 lanes taken down. All they need to do is take this last inhibitor. And FlyQuest, it's no more Baroned up TSM, but it's still a big wave shoved in. They're having trouble protecting this bot outer. And I think more importantly, this does give TSM just the free fast track to get that Hextech Soul. This is going to be a 4 Hextech Dragon Hextech Soul, which really helps TSM not having a ton of engage, because that chain slow, that could buy enough space, buy enough time for a Shockwave to connect, buy a Shuriken Flip from Viper to connect, and it's going to be given over to TSM for free.
They can't really contest this, and now it is... I said it before, FlyQuest need to hope for a miracle, but it is even more doubly so.
Elder waiting room.
They have to bait out enough time. They got good scaling on their side, like you mentioned before, Cubby. They can utilize the tankiness that a Hecarim has, as well as the damage that can come in from Gwen and Aphelios, but they still have to get to that point. They're still suffering.
Yeah, this Gwen is massive. I think that is an important note, as Philip has completed the death cap, does have the Zanyas, so can buy a lot of space in these fights. And the issue at this point is just FlyQuest can't get out of their base. It's 2 inhibitors knocked down. I think that Tomo is almost at full build. This is a portion where we think that FlyQuest comp can really start to come back and start to take it to TSM, and Tomo might be able to find some good fights, given TSM doesn't have all the engage in the world, but I think the angles that Viper's been able to find, some of the ults from Takeover, it stopped FlyQuest from finding those angles, and their window's running out. Now, they have been able to fix that top side. They've got enough shove mid where that inhibitor's back, and FlyQuest can at least get back out on the map to try and contest TSM, but it's still so tough for them at this point.
I don't really know what their options are at this point to get back in, unless they can split up Takeover. But it is TSM that have found FlyQuest pretty far out of their base. The advantage is in their side with that Hextech Soul. Looking for the knockup. They've got a clear and they got a stun. And here comes the engage. They've taken down Tomo. They've taken down UG. There is no fight left. Even if Phillips in the back line, he will soon die. With the heals being a lot, but it's only to take down Yurson. They've split up the team. That's the double kill for Viper, and Hyper looking for his own on the Spyrex. The charm, it might connect, but the game is over. The game is lost for FlyQuest. It is TSM coming up victorious.
And it came from the Hextech Soul. The one slow that connects on the Tomo, it is enough for TSM to then close the gap to find the big late game AD for FlyQuest, as now TSM looking for the game. That's going to be a GA pop from Hyper. And Bad Magical, we haven't seen this TSM roster since Super Week when they made the swap. This is a different looking team now with Yurson. I've never seen Yurson and Hyper work together like that in an Academy game. And I think that this was a big level up for TSM. I know that from talking with Instinct, you know, he felt like he learned a lot from playing with Shen Yi, from having that experience, but they needed something more. And I think that whatever Yurson learned in LCS, whatever they were able to pick up, I think that it's been incorporated in this team and has really leveled up this Academy play.
Yeah, it's looking really good. Also, you're seeing a black screen out there. There we go. Got us back. I want to make sure we get that all covered. It was a great look for TSM. Like, I don't think I can praise Hyper and Yurson enough. They looked on point with one another. The communication really seemed to be there, and it worked out well. They got these advantages. The Pyke that kind of needs a little bit of a snowball to get rolling. The end of the game, 1-11.
Yeah, I mean, if you don't get that snowball, it's a pick that's definitely going to look ugly. But I think the way that Yurson was able to work with Hyper to make sure that he was in the bot lane at the right times, and then it all started with Yurson picking up 2 kills on the Tom Kench. That shut down the snowball from the Aphelios Pyke with how they were able to counter that as a squad. And TSM ran with it from there. I think they found some really nice angles with team fights. And that was a win from TSM where, I mean, Viper, he fell behind in lane. I think he stepped up big as the game went on, but most of the winning formulas we've seen from TSM is Viper winning lane and helping carry the win for TSM from there. That wasn't the formula for that win. That was a different look, something we haven't seen TSM do all season. Really good to see that improvement out of them.
And they take game 1 over FlyQuest. Whether they can take game 2 and continue to move up the standings and have that last minute push for Proving Grounds top 6? We'll find out. We're going to toss it to a break. When we come back, we'll discuss the game a little bit more, as well as have our halftime show with Kangas. So make sure you stick around.